We want to welcome everyone back to the Bulldog Chronicles. Today we're sitting with a legend, an historical icon at Alabama A&M University Athletics Department, now retired head women's bowling coach, Jeff McCorvey. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brandon. How about yourself?
All right, Coach. You know, when I heard that you were going to retire, my heart kind of longed there because not only have we met before I became the SID at Alabama A&M, but, you know, we had a great relationship then, and then once I got here, I immediately wanted to work with you because I've seen what you've done for the program. And, Coach, just talk about your years as head coach here at A&M.
Well, they've been 15 of the best years of my life. It's hard to believe when I look back at some of the players, how they're grown up now, and I'm still staying in touch with some of them through email and stuff, and quite a few of them still live in Huntsville. As a matter of fact, I drilled a ball for a girl last week, Terica Kelly, who was one of the on the team back in 2002, and she's still in Huntsville and still bowls, and so it's kind of neat to see that relationship.
So not only did you win championships here as the head women's bowling coach, but you developed student athletes, young ladies, because there's the women's bowling team, into avid bowlers who continue to play the game even after their collegiate seasons have ended. Well,
that's one of the nice things about being a bowling coach as opposed to a football coach or a basketball coach. You can bowl for the rest of your life and beyond your collegiate years. It's not the same intensity level, but they can, a great deal of my players continue to bowl in league or just as a casual basis. Some of them, Tony Miller, who was one of the early players on the team, both of her boys bowl in the youth program here in Huntsville. And so it combines the generations as well. But ever since day one when Mr. Martin made me the head coach, I always felt like teaching players to bowl was a lower priority. Seeing that they graduated and became, good young women and successful in their careers, to me that was always more important and took precedent over actual bowling and winning championships. So I take the most pride in the successes they've had off the lanes.
And they've had a number of successes as your teams have carried the highest GPA not only amongst student athletes at Alabama A&M, but amongst the SWAC for over 7-8 years since during your 15-year period, if I'm not mistaken.
We've had very good success. So we continually post one of the highest APRs. We were recognized nationally a few years back for having 1,000 APR. Last year we won the award for the highest team GPA in all of collegiate bowling, and so we've had very good success academically. We've had a lot of academic AllAmericans, and I'm very proud of that. And to be quite honest with you, it's made my job a lot easier. That I don't have to worry about their grades so much.
And you have a number of championships athletically, but you have seemed as though more championships among the young ladies academically.
I would agree with that, and as I said earlier, I consider that more important in the big picture.
Moving to the athletic side, Coach, you captured the SWAC championship in 2007 and 2010. You were the national runner-up in 2006. You came within a few frames, if I'm not mistaken, of winning the national championship in bowling. Would have been Alabama A&M's third national championship, as the men's soccer team won 2 back in the 70s with Salah Yusuf. You've been to the SWAC championship tournament a number of years, and we just learned that you were the regular season champion. The women's bowling team at A&M is the 8th straight year regular season champion in SWAC women's bowling. That's quite an accomplishment.
Well, like most sports, you have your regular season, which qualifies you to get to the championship tournament, and then you have the championship tournament. The regular season takes place over a much longer period and is more of the marathon, and the actual championship tournament is more of a sprint. And I'm very pleased to say that we've made it to the SWAC championship through our regular season accomplishments for every year except for the first year of the program. We've been the regular season champions 8 years in a row, and we've played for the championship match 6 times. So we have 4 runner-ups and 2 championships.
Quite an accomplishment, Coach.
Well, we're pretty proud of that too. We would have liked to have had a couple more championships, but we actually battled with your team a couple times, your former school, and you were on the other end, so I guess you've got quite a few bowling championships, Brandon.
I only have about 2, Coach.
So yes, we lost twice to Southern, and both of them nail biters, one of them by 1 pin, probably one of the most heartbreaking losses.
Very much so.
And then we lost a couple to Prairie View. They were also very tight. So the 4 we lost, we were in it right down to the wire, and it could have gone either way for either team.
Losing by 1 pin in bowling is like losing by 1 run, where the runner is crossing home plate and the umpire decides he's out instead of safe. Like losing in basketball by 1 basket, you put it up there and they miss. By losing by a field goal. You know, you missed the game-winning field goal. It is heartbreaking to lose close matches, whether you're bowling, whether you're playing football, whether you're playing basketball, no matter what sport, whether you're playing chess. If you lose by 1, it's tough because you know your opportunities were there and you just kind of let it slip away.
Yeah, it's the life of a coach. You're gonna have some heartbreaking losses, but even our runner-up championship at the Nationals in 2006. Sure, it was really great to get close, and you know, we lost that championship, but we got there by knocking off the 2-time defending national championship team, Nebraska. Nebraska was undefeated that season, and we beat them 2 times in a row to knock them out of the double elimination format. And so for us, that was a huge victory in itself. And then the championship match against Fairleigh Dickinson University was almost a little anticlimactic after taking down Nebraska. So, but I would say that final Nebraska match, televised live by ESPN, where Whitney Smith, our All-American, threw 3 strikes in the 10th frame to beat Nebraska by a pin. That, without a doubt, is my single greatest memory in all of bowling, both as a coach and a player. It was pretty eventful.
Single greatest memory throughout your coaching career in college athletics. And playing, yeah.
I would say short of, I won a major tournament with my dad keeping score one time. That was kind of cool. It was right before he passed away.
Okay.
But, yeah, it was a pretty cool event beating Nebraska.
Okay. You mentioned your single greatest memory as a coach. You started here in 1998, and you were an assistant from 98-99 season. So you've seen the birth of women's collegiate bowling in the SWAC. Early on, it was only about 30 or 40 teams that collegiately bowled for the NCAA. So you've seen there was a time that SWAC bowling was pretty dominant nationally. Talk about, the birth of that.
Well, collegiate bowling has been around for quite a while at the club level, which is what I played when I played at Auburn. And in the mid-90s, it started taking a foothold at the NCAA varsity level. And the SWAC was one of the first conferences to adopt bowling as a varsity sport in 97, which was the year before A&M came on board. At that time, when we started our bowling program in 98, there were probably less than 30 schools that sponsored bowling.
Okay.
Now there's about 80. So SWAC was very instrumental in kick-starting the sport of bowling. 2004, when we reached the plateau of 40 schools, was when it became a full-fledged championship sport. And so since then it's had unprecedented growth, and I believe bowling is either one of the first or second fastest growing collegiate sports. And I think SWAC has played a great role in that.
You've seen how the birth of women's bowling and its growth has continued to gain national attention from ESPN, not only showing the national championship, but now they're starting to show conference championships. conference tournament championships throughout, including the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And hearing people on television talk about, hey, the other night I watched women's collegiate bowling. And it's like, no, that's the first time I ever heard that. So, it has really grown, as you mentioned. How did you feel about its growth?
Well, as a lifelong bowler, I love it. Like I said, I competed at the club level, and the difference between the club level and the varsity level is quite dramatic. And I try to encourage lots of young players that want to pursue bowling in college to pursue the varsity level, if nothing else because of the academic standards that are administered by NCAA. I served on the NCAA National Bowling Committee. I was chair one year. I've worked the national championship tournament 7 times as an official, and so I couldn't be happier to see the growth in the sport that I've been involved with my entire life. And it's way more than a job. I didn't take this job because it was a job. I did it because it's a passion, and that's what really drives me for bowling and collegiate bowling in particular.
You have a lot of miles up and down the interstates of America. You already learned about your greatest single memory coaching here at Alabama A&M. Tell us about some of the contests that have been played while you were coaching, other than that national championship.
Well, I can remember back in, I think it was 2002, we were still pretty young and raw. When we first started bowling, we recruited girls off campus. We'd hold an open tryouts, and we basically would just test their athletic ability, and then I would take them and teach them how to bowl. Very few of them had much bowling experience. So in 2002, we notched one of our first big victories against Central Missouri University, who was a perennial powerhouse. And then in 2004, I was able to land Whitney Smith, who was a local bowler, as a recruit. And she was our first really big superstar. And she kind of got the ball rolling and brought in other good players. So we had the number of individual matches. I could talk to you for all day about that, Brandon. But obviously the ones that stand out in my mind are the championship matches. Our first SWAC championship was very historic because we went completely undefeated. We didn't lose a single match that year in 2007. We swept everybody. And the SID at the time, I believe, was Tom Galbraith. And he mentioned the historic significance of a double elimination format, not dropping a single game. Basically we went 12-0 in 3 matches. And so that was a very impressive, solid run that I'm pretty proud of. So there's a lot.
Coach, we've seen you talk to your players on television in SWAC championship tournaments and national championship tournaments. We've seen you talk to them in the Bulldog Classics that you birthed here on the campus in the new Health and Wellness Center. What are some of the things you remember you told a young bowler when they were struggling?
Well, one thing about coaching is that every player is different, and I'm a big believer in the mental aspect and the psychology of coaching. Every sport has its physical adjustments, but when a player is struggling, it generally is more mental than it is physical. And so depending on that particular player, it might be how I address them. Some players respond well to vigorous coaching, and then others respond better with a little more subtle approach. So I'm sure everyone who coaches would understand, that you have to treat each player as an individual when they're in that position. And like I said, some can be yelled at, some can't be yelled at, and you got to know which is which.
Now, Coach, you mentioned Whitney Smith being an All-American. You had a number of All-Americans, including one young lady that actually went to the World Bowling Congress and played in the Junior Olympics.
Well, what you're talking about is Adeline Pointer.
She
represented the USA on Team USA. She was on our Team USA twice. So she did quite well as well. Whitney, what was most impressive about Whitney is she was all SWAC all 4 years. was SWAC Freshman of the Year, SWAC Player of the Year, and All-American. So, and she won a conference championship, and she was on the runner-up team for the national championship. So, hands down, her individual accomplishments are unparalleled, even by Addie. And Melanie DiCarlo was also a 4-time All-SWAC player.
Mm-hmm.
Alex McIntyre, who's the current coach, following me, she came here as a sophomore. She was a transfer. So she was All-SWAC for all 3 of her seasons, but she only played 3 here.
Okay.
So yeah, we've turned out some pretty strong players, and Alex, besides coaching our team now, is still very competitive on an individual basis herself. She competes quite a bit.
And even Whitney, because of her illustrious career coaching, has her number retired. The only women's bowling player here to have a woman number retired. And I remember doing the Classic, you had so many accomplishments and achievements. You even had a marriage proposal in that Bulldog Classic.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that, Brandon, because that may be one of the more significant events. We did retire Whitney's number because of her accomplishments, but 1 year at the Bulldog Challenge, Melanie DiCarlo got proposed to, and she's scheduled to get married this summer.
Okay.
And I'm sure she would appreciate gifts.
Her congratulations, Melanie and her fiance, on their nuptials. You know, Coach, like you mentioned, we can talk all day about, you know, the things that have happened throughout your 15 years and the accomplishments that you've achieved and the championships. Tell us about the one thing you miss.
Well, I'm going to miss the players. There's no question about that. I won't miss the paperwork, but and I won't miss driving in the van, but I'm going to miss all the players. And I have gone from my 30s to my 40s to my 50s in this tenure, and the girls used to seem a lot older. Now they seem a lot younger, and I think it's because I'm a lot older. But definitely going to miss the players and the interaction. And one of the things that I'm probably most proud of is we've never had any incidents, which is good to say as a coach, especially like you said, all the miles that we logged traveling around. We never had anything significant happen bad, so I'm pretty happy for that. Because
that's a blessing.
Yep. You know, every time I take a great deal of responsibility that I'm responsible for a lot of daughters, and as a father myself, I can understand that responsibility.
Well, Coach, we know that you have taken care of the women's bowling team really well throughout your 15 years. It seems as though you've left it in pretty good hands. And Coach Alex McIntyre, just talk about, what can she bring as a first-year head coach?
Well, that's pretty easy, Brandon. Of all the players I've coached, I would say Alex has the highest bowling IQ. She's very intelligent in the first place. She has an analytical brain, which suits well for coaching. And she's always had a good grasp of the subtleties of the sport. And she brings an intensity that is way beyond my intensity, especially now. I might have had it 10 years ago, but she's extremely competitive. And like I told Athletic Director Hicks when he was searching, in my opinion, she has all the qualities that you would look for in a head coach because of her competitiveness, her intelligence, her knowledge, and she's a doer. She gets things done. She actually has the record of the highest GPA of any bowler in our history. She had a 3.99 GPA when she graduated.
Wow.
And she obviously won every academic honor during her tenure as a player. So. And she's doing quite well in her other career, so there's no reason why she won't be successful.
Okay, well, Coach, we want to thank you for joining us on the Bulldog Chronicles. Now that you have such a great amount of free time, what do you plan on doing in your retirement?
Well, I'm going to just sit back and enjoy things and maybe be a better husband. So I'll be gone so much.
And your wife gets you back.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Coach McCorvey. Thank you very much for your 15 years of service on the hill at Alabama A&M University, and we wish you the best of luck.
Go Bulldogs.